592-628-6582, 592-661-5990. For the first time, playback singer Abhijit live in concert on Sunday, 7th May at Everest Cricket Club, Georgetown, powered by the Massive Tank.
This is the news on top of the hour.
Live from our studio in Georgetown.
Kaieteur Radio, 99.1 FM.
Good evening and welcome to this evening's newscast on Kaieteur Radio. I am Kevin Smith. Let's get to the news in detail. The Commission of Inquiry into the March 2020 general and regional elections has found that there was a conscious and deliberate, even brazen effort to violate the provisions of Section 84(1) of the Representation of the People's Act by senior officials of the Guyana Elections Commission. And in its report, the Commission of Inquiry singled out former Chief Elections Officer Keith Lowenfield, his then deputy Roxanne Myers, and returning officer for Region 4 Claremont Mingo, accusing them of principally responsible for clear and deliberate attempts to frustrate, obstruct, and subvert the ascertainment of votes in Region 4. Notwithstanding that GECOM had specifically decided that the approved method for the ascertaining and tabulation. All three of the former GECOM officers are before the courts on a slew of elections-related fraud charges. They had declined to give evidence at the Commission of Inquiry when called upon. According to its finding, the Commission said the identified GECOM officials abandoned all need for neutrality and impartiality and demonstrated a bias for a competing political party, and in the course of events over those days showed an open connection with that party and, by their efforts, sought a desired result for that party. And in other news, American oil explorer Hess Corporation disclosed yesterday that it registered net income totaling $346 million or $1.13 per share in the first quarter of 2023. Though this represented a positive outcome, it was still lower than the net income of $417 million in the first quarter of 2022. Hess said the decrease in after-tax results compared with the prior year quarter reflects lower realized selling prices, partially offset by the net impact of higher production volumes from Guyana in the first quarter of 2023. The company was keen to note that Guyana's assets, particularly at the Stabroek Block, where it has a 30% interest, were a major contributor to its quarterly earnings. Hess said net production from the Liza Destiny and Liza Unity floating production, storage, and offloading vessels totaled 112,000 barrels of oil per day in the first quarter of 2023, compared with 30,000 barrels per day in the prior year quarter. And now let's tell you, a 23-year-old man identified as Meshach Benjamin has left the Sophia community in shock after he went berserk on Tuesday morning, stabbing his reputed wife 22 times in the presence of her two young children. Dead is 31-year-old Lisa George of Seafield, Sophia. George was reportedly attacked around 3 hours on her bed. Her 12-year-old son told investigators that his mother's screams awakened him. He reportedly ran to her room only to witness the horror of his stepfather plunging a knife repeatedly into his mother's body as she lay pinned underneath him. The screams also awakened George's sister, who lived next door, and she rushed over with her husband to see what was going on. She recalled that when they entered, her husband ran to rescue her sister by restraining Benjamin and taking away the two knives he used to stab her. An ambulance was called, but by the time it arrived, George had bled to death on her bed, and the emergency medical team had no other choice but to pronounce her dead at the scene. Get the full details in today's Kaieteur News. Justice Damon Young of the Georgetown High Court Wednesday urged speedy appointment of a substantive chancellor and chief justice. Justice Young handed down her ruling in case brought against the state by Vice Chairman of the People's National Congress Reform, Vince Roy Jordan, for the court to direct President Ali through the Attorney General to make substantive appointments to the offices of the Chancellor and Chief Justice through a declarative order. In determining the case, however, Justice Young held that President Ali did not violate Guyana's constitution because there was no consultation with the then opposition leader on the appointment of a substantive chancellor and chief justice, but frowned on the overall decades-long delays in the non-appointment of permanent office holders to those two top judicial posts. And just before we head to a break, let's tell you, President Ali on Wednesday told reporters on the sidelines of an event at his office that Permanent Secretary May Toussaint Thomas was traveling to China on party business when U.S. officials detained her for questioning at the Miami airport. We've been able to confirm with other sources that indeed Thomas was traveling along with two men who are members of the PPPC. It is understood that one of the men is the son of Guyana's ambassador to Suriname and the other is the son of a former PPP government official. As it relates to Thomas's detention at the Miami airport and the revocation of her U.S. visa, President Ali assured that there was no real motive behind the move by the U.S. officials. The Commission of Inquiry into the March 2020 general elections has recommended major restructuring of the Guyana Elections Commission and the enactment of campaign financing legislation here to govern future elections. The Commission's recommendation for the restructuring of GECOM mirrors that of a host of elections observer groups over the years. The current structure of GECOM caters for 3 commissioners appointed by the President and another 3 from the opposition. The chairperson is chosen by the President from a list of candidates submitted by the leader of the opposition. As a result, over the years, GECOM has been the scene of perpetual gridlock, which has been compounded in recent times with the current chairperson, retired Justice Claudette Singh, being accused of siding with the ruling party in most decisions that come down to a vote. In making the case for restructuring of GECOM, the Commission of Inquiry said, as it stands, the structure of GECOM is, at its core, politicized, making it difficult for it to operate with any efficiency or effectiveness. And in all the news, Akram Samaru, a 28-year-old of Nonpareil, East Coast Demerara, on Tuesday died after he lost control of his car and plowed into a trench at Coldigen, East Coast Demerara. We understand that the accident occurred on the Coldigen Access Road around 18:15. According to the police, the young mechanic was heading south along the eastern side of the Coldigen Road at a fast rate, and while making a left bend on the access road, he ended up losing control of his vehicle. Reports are that the car careened off the road and ended up in a nearby trench where it became submerged in water. Samaru, the police said, was later pulled out by persons in the area and examined by the emergency medical technicians, who pronounced him dead at the scene. And moving on, with $12.4 billion dedicated towards the construction, rehabilitation, extension, and maintenance of educational facilities across the country, the Ministry of Education is seeking contractors to build 5 brand new secondary schools. This is according to a recent tender issued by the ministry, who is seeking contractors or suppliers to build schools at Kwabana and Hosororo in Region 1, Jawala in Region 7, Kopenang in Region 8, and Tushen in Region 3. No estimated costs were provided for the 5 projects, but according to the invitation for bids, the ministry is seeking contractors to execute site development works to carry out the superstructure works for the school buildings, for dormitories and teachers' quarter, to execute electrical works, sanitation, and plumbing works. And now let's tell you, amid concerns that the offshore operations of oil companies are not being monitored, the Environmental Protection Agency has assured that mechanisms are in place to ensure there is adequate oversight of the sector. Executive Director of the regulatory body, Kemraj Parsuram, explained that the agency has been utilizing the latest technology to conduct remote monitoring of ExxonMobil's oil and gas activities. In addition, the EPA had pointed out that the officers attached to the body also conducts intermittent inspections for audits, which is acceptable internationally. While there has been a call for Guyanese to have a presence on the floating production, storage, and offloading vessels currently operating in the Liza 1 and Liza 2 fields, Parstrom said he is unaware of such a system. Meanwhile, ExxonMobil Guyana on Wednesday announced its second discovery for this year, the Lancetfish 1 well in the Stabroek Block. This adds to the 39 discoveries already recorded by the oil giant so far in the country's exclusive economic zone.
Want value for your advertising dollar? Then place your ads on Kaieteur Radio's Newscasts. Streamed live on 6 different mediums, reaching hundreds of thousands. Advertise today and watch your dollar grow. Call us on 225-8465 or 226-8210 today.
Kaieteur Radio, keeping you informed.
Demerara and Essequibo 99.1 FM.
Burbies 99.5 FM. Kaieteur Radio.
I shudder to think where this country is heading and what will become of it. When I look back at the few scoping meetings Exxon hosted about their oil projects they're about to do in a couple places across this country, what they say to us, what they focus on, and what they're doing to Guyana and our school kids in the process, it's not sad. It's frightening. The last scoping meeting I attended at Maikoni Secondary School, they brought out about 50 children out of the classrooms to tell them how the